After being bitten by a radioactive bird, somewhat mannered, T. Tuthill was possessed to become Kinius, the Skydude. All right, so episode 137. Normally I do these as like 136A, 136B, if I'm streaming more than once a day, but I'm just going to go ahead and move forward with the numbering. So this is 137. We're following the route of Alexander the Great. All right. And we made it as far as Granicus in the last episode. You're like, the heck is Granicus? Granicus, my friends, is up here. So today in the live stream, we did the Hellespont, Troy, and Granicus. So this is all Macedonia up here. Way out here to Greece. So Alexander's already had lots of adventures out here dealing with the Greeks. And basically, he's the king of Greece at the moment, basically. His dad was the king of Greece, but his dad died. So he's basically the king of everything Greek. Not a lot of people like that. But anyway, he's going to continue to avenge Greece the way his father had done. And he's going to travel down here, and he traveled down here into this little finger of land here between these two bodies of water. And in classic history, this finger here has been called the Hellespont. Hellas Point. Gallipoli's down here in modern terms. The names changed so many times, so trying to find things has been a real pleasure. Okay, so all of his troops, about 40, 50,000 or more, all crossed around here, Gallipoli and all throughout here. And he started securing everything in here and having his troops set up all out here and start staging out here and recruiting and yada, 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 having a good old time. He continued on down here to the very tip, and then he made a crossing down here into Troy. And he hung out in Troy for a while, and he hung out at the tomb of Achilles, and he partied, and he threw games. He had games, and he did a lot of recruiting and promoting, and had a grand old time. And so now, after that, he hoofed it back to all of his troops, and they went over here to Granicus. Where's Granicus? Right in here. At this river. Where this river comes in. Is this it? Did I get my point right? Or I got my point wrong? Yeah, I got my point wrong. Here we go. This river. And this was the area of his first battle against the Persian army, the Achaemenid Persian forces. All right. So about 40 or 50,000, give or take, on either side of this river. Alexander coming from the west, the Persians on the east. And they said he did it in under an hour. He just drove through on the left side. All of his main guys were holding everybody at the river and were getting pushed back a little bit. Alexander over here on the wing swept in, kicked everybody's butt coming up through here, and flanked them and caused them to rout. They all split, took off. Then he caught another group over here, and it was kind of a sad situation. All right, so now that's where we're picking up at. Okay, so from there, Alexander turned south. Now, what particular route he made it down here to Magnesia, ancient Magnesia, where magnetism comes from. I'm like, milk of magnesia? No, Kinius, not milk of magnesia. It's famed for its, when they discovered magnets. It is the ancient place where rocks attract and repel each other. Magnesia. So he wanted to come down here and make it to Magnesia. Again, which route If you've ever played Rome Emperor, Rome Total War, any of that, you know what a drag it is to try to get anywhere in a straight line. You can't. It's curving here and curving here and curving here and curving there and eventually getting down here, and then it's curving and curving and curving and curving and curving and constantly all the way south. It's quite nuts. All right, so that's where we're headed tonight. We're going to take off here from the point where he won. He wanted to come down here and do some more promoting. He wanted to have his generals take all of these little islands and all the little tiny city-states along here, and he wanted to concentrate on these big points. So Ephesus is here, ancient Ephesus, and this is Miletus, where he had one of his biggest siege campaigns. And we'll get into that, the giant siege that took place here. And then there was another big wicked situation at Halicarnassus. And hopefully we can get that far tonight. All right, on the money end of things, in NEOFLY, I looked and I couldn't find any good jobs to take that would take us along this same path. But I did find out that if we buy a bunch of computers and sell them down here, we can make about $500 per unit that we sell. So I bought a bunch of computers already. So if we look at our hangar and our cargo, you see it here over on the right side of the screen, cargo. Those are computers, and we'll try to remember to dump those off at the airport closest to where we're going to be ending our flight tonight. Let's get to it. Hey, I could really use your support, like and subscribe. My first show hasn't finished processing, so I don't know if there was any problem playing the clips from the Kings and Generals channel. If I discover that there's no problems with playing clips, either video clips or the music playing in those clips on my channel, and everybody's cool with it, then I would like to, at the end of each live stream, show you the play-by-play that those creators have put together, and they're phenomenal. So I've got my fingers crossed, and I'm going to have to start putting them at the very end of the live streams, so in case I have to cut them out. Okay, so if you want to see how the battles went at Miletus and Halicarnassus, then stick around to the very end, or skip ahead to the very end. And if you skip ahead to the very end and there's nothing there, there was a problem. Okay. Here we go. I've already stocked us up on fuel.
I know it's going to be a good day when my favorite pilot is working.
Why, thank you. I forget her name.
Everything is on board.
Have you seen that?
Everything looks good from where I'm sitting. Taxi to the runway and take off.
If you're on social media a lot, especially Twitter, in the last couple of days, you've seen this, I don't know, she seems like an Arabian woman complaining about Southern women being tomboys, and that they shouldn't be allowed to work, and they shouldn't be allowed to talk, and talking like that should be illegal, and they're not sexy, and they're not feminine. Have you seen all that hubbub about that young lady, that Persian? She's Persian Arabic seeming to me, maybe Indian, but they tend to not to be that arrogant. Anyway, I'm all for the young lady from America. I think she's just the cutest, sweetest thing. Okay, like I said, we're all set in the computer. Make sure my throttle's off. Need to make sure the separator is on. And what this does is any hard particles coming in towards the engine get baffled out while we're close to the ground. Okay, props all the way forward. Let's double check that Bushtalk is working. And what Bushtalk is it plays audio tours. If I go across any points on these maps, let me try to find myself. Oh, that's, sorry. Wrong. There we are, up here. All right, as I take off from here, and as if I cross any of these little buttons that people make as audio tours, it'll play something. And it's sad, there's not going to be a whole lot of anything in between here and there. I'll talk more on that here in a moment, just how blown away I am at the lack of nothingness. Okay. Put this away. Check our settings here. Let's put some altitude in. I'm looking at the right-hand monitor over there. 11,000, 1,000, 2,000. There are some mountains around here, so let's go to 5, just to be safe. All right, there's 5,000 feet. We'll put autopilot on nav for when we turn it on. We'll set a flight level change. Climb up to 5,000 feet. And away we go. Yeah, I would really like some more likes and subscribe. Who wouldn't, right? And now we can do super chat. And I received a donation of $1 from a young lad this afternoon. I told him not to donate. Like, you're too young to donate. He's like, but I want to donate. And he says, my dad doesn't want me to donate. And I'm like, yeah, your dad's right. I don't want you to donate. Good on you, Dad. But he kept begging, and his dad caved in, as I understand, and the young lad was able to donate $1.
Enjoy your personal flight, pilot.
Well, thank you very much.
More jobs after you land.
All right, let me kick in the autopilot here. Keep an eye on it. Hope it doesn't try to kill us. Let me put the separator back in. Keeping an eye on the autopilot. It's turning us to the GPS course, which is the pink arrow in our screen here. We want to make sure that we have a positive rate of climb. We want to make sure that the plane steadies on the GPS route. All right, it looks like it's going to. 2,000 feet. At 5,000 feet, looks like we're maintaining a decent rate of climb, 75 knots in a climb. That's fine. We don't want to go down any lower or into the red and stall out. Okay. So we should be safe for a minute or two. Have a look outside. So again, the river down below us, right here. The other down. All this, folks, is where Alexander the Great, 40,000 or more men versus 40,000 or more men on the other side of this river. Where exactly along here? Don't know exactly what point, but it is this area here. And way off in the distance, in the background, you can still make out that finger land mass, the Hellespont. And way out there to the east, back there, is Troy. Yeah, really have to use your imagination when flying around Troy and really look at the Earth. Because there's not a whole lot that's going to jump out at you and go, oh my god, there was a giant kingdom here. If you aren't looking hard, you won't see it. You're like, where is it? I thought this was a massive metropolis, and, you know, shouldn't there be definite signs that it was here? No. Funny that. These are all extra shows tonight. Again, this is part 2, basically, of the route of Alexander. We're going to Halicarnassus. If I do a third show tonight, either tonight or tomorrow, the next show, I think Alexander then turns north again, and he goes to the kingdom of King Midas. And the only story they want to talk about Alexander in the kingdom of King Midas, the only story they want to talk about is a knot. Like, you tie a knot in a rope, you tie a knot in your shoe, a knot. You tie a knot in some string. That's all they want to talk about. I love it when you look down and you see land masses like that below us that look terraced. That's a lot of work. Chinese are great at it. You'll see a lot of that in as you go into Texas, go into Mexico. It's like every bit of the land over there in when you cross into Mexico from Texas, not kind of like deep Mexico, more like, yeah, the border between Texas and Mexico, all of that region, all that stuff traveling south. Every bit of terrain looks like it has been 3D printed. It's unbelievable. Believe me, trust me when I say that is what you will see. Looks like that was a quarry down there. If you're like, man, that looks crappy, I can't make out the details. Some countries we don't have maps, really good maps yet for. There has been no world update for this part of the planet yet. And I kind of understand. Some people don't want us having information. And so, you know, the terrain may not look as good as it can. The buildings may not look good. The photogrammetry isn't going to be all that. I have in planning these trips, normally as you fly, the Microsoft servers, the ISSUS servers, whatever, the flight simulator servers, as you travel around, normally it's constantly feeding you the maps as you go into these into new territories. But there's a way you can go into the simulator and get all the maps before you fly it. So I spent this entire weekend downloading maps so that it was easier on the computer and everything to have the maps beforehand, and to download areas of interest where we're going to be flying over, you know, and stopping, or whatever areas of interest, getting the highest resolution maps that I could get. So all my settings are, when able, will try to produce the best possible graphics. I wish I had a better machine. Like and subscribe, help me get a better machine. I will no matter what be getting one. Probably, I want to wait till Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 comes out, and then really look at what machines are running it the best, handling the new multi-threading, and, you know, which one's crunching the threads faster, yada, 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 all that. And then I'll buy. But every penny helps, and if you would like to contribute so that I can get a better system and display things in 2 to 4K or higher for you in the future, that would be fantastic. I could really use your help. And I would love to be able to do that. You know, at least a 4070 system, at least. I would really like to go to 4090. AMD's got some good machines out, but again, I don't know whose stuff is gonna be better. Probably the Intel and Nvidia, but We won't know until people start crunching the numbers. Wonder if he took this river. That'd be a quick way to get heading that way without too much stress. He did have a lot of floaty things with him, making that run across the Hellespont. Alexander purchased or bought or acquired everything that could float when he made that crossing. They said there was more than, I want to say 1,000 ships, anything that could float. In one story, they said his soldiers would have to fold up their tents, fill them with hay, and fold them up and sew them shut, and use them as flotation devices to get across the Hellespont. So they had everything that conceivably could float, and flying this direction now, from where we were, you could see how, he could probably leverage these waterways, or at least travel along them, or a combination of both. I feel I have the tree graphics up too high. They're causing a lot of, and on my screen anyway, because I've got the trees set to ultra, we might be getting a lot of shimmering in the foresty areas. As we get closer to the ground, though, they look fantastic. I have a feeling we passed that audio point way back then and didn't get anything. What was it? Oh, that was the Battle of Granicus itself. Let me play that for you, so at least you understand what we're leaving, what just took place.
The Battle of the Granicus in May 334 BC was the first of three major battles fought between Alexander the Great of Macedon and the Persian Achaemenid Empire. The battle took place on the road from Abydos to Dyscelium, at the crossing of the Granicus in the Troad region, which is now called the Bega River in Turkey. In the battle, Alexander defeated the field army of the Persian satraps of Asia Minor, which defended the river crossing. After this battle, the Persians were forced on the defensive in the cities that remained under their control in the region.
So what I am going to do, it's kind of, I don't think I need the trees up that high. I would rather have the terrain looking more pretty than the trees. So pardon me, I hate blowing immersion and all that, but see. And we don't need to see the grass or the bushes at the moment while we're up in the air. Let's turn those off altogether. The buildings, there really isn't anything until we get somewhere. So, and there are no clouds in the sky. The sun is directly overhead to eliminate shadows. Wow, that really takes out the trees, doesn't it? So what he was doing as he was heading this way, all those troops, right? Those 40,000, 50,000, and they're recruiting as they're moving. So he splits up his generals and he starts having them spread out all around here making sure that all these, wherever any city-states were out here, that everybody reconverted to Greek. He liberated all the cities and made them Greek again. And most people were pretty happy. And he sent them all the way out to the coast to cover all that territory. Maybe it's better if I use this map. All right, so we're the arrowhead here on the map. So he had his generals from Granicus start spreading out, coming over this way, coming back south of Troy and taking all of this, making sure all these little islands here and all these little city-states that pretty much stuff still exists in those areas right now. And he's going to skip a lot of these up here and leave these for his generals as he makes it a hightail down into here. Then he's going to shoot for the two big cities down here, Miletus and Halicarnassus. And that's where we're headed. And then, either later tonight or tomorrow, he's going to come back up in here somewhere to where King Midas and his father Gordion became rulers. I guess the town was in bad shape, really bad shape, to the point that they were desperate, that it was like they were a ghost town or something like that. They were in bad shape. And so they consulted the oracle as to what to do to save their city. And the oracle told them, the next person who rides into your town with an ox cart, you make that person king. So the next guy that rolled into town with an ox cart was a gentleman named Gordion and his son Midas. Right? I don't know if he was born then or not. I don't know. But Midas came along. So they went ahead and they made him king. That's a Monty Python skit right there. That's no way to form a government. It worked, though, because, again, Midas, the myth of Midas is whatever Midas touched turned to gold. But again, when we get there, all they want to talk about is this knot. They don't ever say that he went for the gold. Some people, they just gloss over it. They're like, now Alexander had to replenish his treasury because war is expensive. And he's got all these grand plans, so he's going to need lots and lots of gold. And he was stripping it from areas that it could be stripped without stripping it from the people, as I understand. That was one of the ways that he was winning favor with the people. He's like, you don't have to pay any taxes. What? If you convert back to a Greek democracy, which should be if you convert back to a Greek republic, then you don't have to pay taxes anymore, at least for a while, you know. And so he was winning a lot of people over with that right there, just not having to pay. And if they had oligarchies or any other sort of despotic rulers, he would kick them out and make them go back to democracy. But it should be republic. Republic is a strong... it's an argument. You hear, oh, our democracy, our democracy, our democracy, every day in the news. Our democracy, our democracy. But the forms of government that have proven throughout history, history is not lying. History shows that the form of government that did the best for the people and created the greatest, like, civilization advancements, not just the best for the people, like low taxes, good commerce, good roads, but works, sewers and aqueducts and, you know, building civilization. The people were most prosperous. They built more. They were more productive, you know, and that was under the Republic. form of government. And that's why you see so many people out there getting angry when everybody's out there yelling, our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. Because here in the United States, we're a constitutional republic. What we were taught in history class is that republics fall into democracy. And unfortunately, if they don't recover and go back to republic, they devolve into anarchy, and then they devolve and collapse. Now, history has proven that over and over and over and over again. And so you can understand why so many people are bent out of shape when everybody's running around saying we must protect our democracy, and then they try to tell you you don't get it. A democracy it's weaker, and the way you guys are running things, you're running things into the ground. And if you keep running things this way, well, look at all the anarchy that is already going on all over the world under democracy. Anarchy everywhere. And what's next? Collapse. Oh, that's a nice place down there. They have a nice city center. Very pretty. And so when people are saying, for lack of a better word, whether you like the phrase or not, make America great again. People that are along those lines, they're trying to get things back and reform government and try to retain a republic. And the famous saying is, something about it's a republic as long as you can keep it. It's a beautiful thing as long as you can keep it. And so we're trying, people of that nature, they're trying to defy history for the first time ever. And not follow suit with all the other empires and devolve in anarchy and collapse. We've tried to make America and the educational system and everything so widespread as fast as we can to get this information to people, to educate them, and all they want to talk about is now naughty things with children and CRT and division and anarchy. What they really need is more history lessons and a lot of philosophy to help them control their all the animal instinct we're seeing in youth today. Why aren't they being taught philosophies on how to control your emotions, the spirit, all these things that came from the ancient world that made these people great. So, if you hear somebody say "Make America Great Again," please immediately try not to get triggered and remember my words. That could be somebody who is really striving to get us back to a Republican form of government and defy history for the first time ever, and hold on to America and not have the United States of America collapse. If you think it can't happen, it happened to everybody here. As far as the eye can see, and if you spin the globe in every direction, all of these great empires no longer exist. And underneath us right now, everywhere was a classic great city-state or nation-state. Babylon's down the road a ways. We're going to get there. These coastal cities that we're going to, Miletus and Halicarnassus, big places. Huge. And as we start getting further and further into Mesopotamia, they start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where things kind of get a little creepy too. I love ancient aliens. And one of the things they don't talk about a lot is Alexander the Great and ancient aliens. It's Alexander the God, Great, and gods, like him searching for his deityhood. But then they talk about him kind of going crazy when he gets down into deep Mesopotamia, and he's down into the old Sumer region, and he's in Babylon and going into India. And if the tablets are true, he's now being confronted with all the earliest histories on the Anunnaki. And he's right there where it all is and existed. It's not like, well, I heard this crazy story about these people that lived over the hill. It's like, no, right here, we're the crazy people in the story where the aliens came down and did all this stuff. So I think it's no wonder he was on a quest to get red pilled, and he got the big red pill. Anytime I see mounds like that, like on the corner of the ground down there, that big mound, I think they call them tumulus. Tumulus is basically a giant burial mound. And so it could just be a giant rock formation. It could also be a tumulus. Because as I keep looking around the ground, I constantly see areas of where they may have set up little tiny city-states all over the place. Or little villages or whatever. All the names down there, going back to, it's been very difficult researching and finding things. Well, thank goodness we have Google. If it would have been any other time than today, it would have been a nightmare. But with Google, it actually makes it pretty easy, but still had to do a lot of work this weekend. Learning the path that he took in the order that he took it, basically. And then all the names have changed. So they're like, and then he went to ISSUS, and then he went to Halicarnassus. And you look out here and you're like, I can't find Halicarnassus. So then you go to Google and it's like, well, it used to be called that, then it was called this, then it was called that, and now it's called this. The names change so frequently around here, it's maddening. But the good thing about Google is it does provide the GPS coordinates as you're researching things. And you can go to the world map, or if you're trying to download maps, and cut and paste a sequence of coordinates, and it'll take you right to it in the world map or in searching for maps. So you can at least always nail the spot and then find out what its current modern name is in the area, the places around it. You can see how this would have been a nice watering hole along the way. I wonder where that river went. How far did he make it traveling on that river? Good place to break the horses out, though. Again, if you've ever played Rome Total War, you know what a drag it is to move around this territory. I usually feel like Alexander when I get over here too. I'm like, I don't want to mess with you guys. Man, this is too far. And then there's so much further to go. It's hard being a ruler of the world. That is an awful fun game, though, especially if you're into military tactics and you really want to fight the battles out yourself. If you don't want to fight the battles yourself, you can always just have it do automatic. But if you want to stage the battles yourself and try all those moves like Alexander, then you have absolute control over all your troops. So the Total War games are pretty darn amazing. That looks like a dam right there. I believe it is. There's the sluice or whatever you call it, the overspill or whatever, to flood that area down into there. That looks like an old amphitheater. Wonder if it, who knows? Something was there. That looks like an airplane on the ground. It was. So there was an airplane there and somebody highlighted it out, or at least it looks that way. Oh yeah. I'm blown away at how little there is. Look, folks, we're talking about ancient history with all these sites that were flying around, and these places have been around and in operation since BC. But yet look at how sparse it is and how little development there is. The lack of airports blows my mind. In the United States and in Europe, you throw a stick, there's an airport. Not out here, Jack, as we're going into the Middle East out here, or Asia Minor, whatever you want to call all this. There's nothing here. I mean, compared to our cities and the cities of Europe and the cities of the United States, it blows my mind that, again, since ancient days, there must have been a lot of mining or stuff going on over here. Look at all the roads that they've, over the years, that they've crisscrossed these mountains. Either trying to find passageways through, or they're trying to find something. They're gridding it off, and even when you see major cities like this, you know, they're still just not, you know, there aren't skyscrapers or buildings, major buildings around. In a way, that's still charming, but in a way, I feel so much less threatened. I know that they still have advanced technology, and we're going to be going to some big cities in other places. But it gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that, outside of those places, they still don't got much. It would be just as easy today, I think, as in Alexander's days to come in and just take everything. Again, take it all. Because there's nothing out here. There's nobody to put up any fights. There's no airports. There's no, so rolling a bunch of troops out here. And surprisingly, a lot of the battles that we fought in modern times end up usually being right around the same places that we fought battles in the past. That's what's blowing my mind too, that there's still areas of importance. Hop back into the plane for a minute, find out where we're at. We'll zoom out. You know what I forgot to do? And I'm not conserving fuel by doing it. Dummy. Oh, I forgot to bring our prop back to minimum. And I think I've had our flaps up the whole time. Be dumb of me, but that'd be typical. And let's see how fast we're going. Yeah. And looks like we got a couple of mountains in front of us, so you go ahead and bring us up a little higher. About 7,000 feet. Try that. Yeah, that's a pretty tall mountain ahead. Better go higher. $9,000. Now I need to put the prop back. We're gonna need the climbing power. I don't have any flight charts or maps with me to, at a glance, tell you how tall the mountain is. I just have to eyeball it at this point. That's another thing that's been weird flying around Europe is in the United States, we're like, you want every bit of information on all of our airports? Here, it's free. It's weird. But you can get any bit of information on every single airport in the United States, all the maps, the flight maps. It's mind-blowing how much information you can get about flying from place to place. All the radio frequencies of everything, blah, blah, blah. And then you go into Europe, and it's hard getting any or finding any of that information. And down here, yeah, same thing. It's near impossible for me to find flight charts and maps and I think we might have to go higher. Come on. All right, I'm going to take it out of flight level change into a vertical speed. And they're not VNAV. Vertical speed. There's 800 feet per minute. $1,200 feet per minute. I want to climb, but I've got to really keep an eye on our speed. Don't want to get too slow. Make things scary. Try putting in a little bit more conditioner. See if that helps at all. almost like it's trying to sharpen it too much. I'm seeing like fuzz, not fuzz, just, you know, there's noise in every bit of the screen. It's not real clean on all the surfaces. All right, we look like we're in good shape. At 8,700 feet. I crashed last week and it cost us $1 million about. It was horrible. And embarrassing. All right, let's do an altitude hold here. Bring the conditioner back. Bring the prop back to minimum. Pull back on the throttle a tiny bit. Get it back into the green. All right. It says we're 2 minutes away from where we're supposed to be. Really? We're there already? So this will be Magnesia. Akasar Air Base. And in the ancient world, it was called Magnesia. For the magnetism, it is a mythological place where the rocks attract and repel each other. Altimeter 2992, wind calm, fly left downwind, runway 31 left. All right, so when we look up, we might see our landing pattern out here somewhere. Or will. Maybe. Did we not have to go up over the mountain? Is it still ahead, or is it beyond the mountain or below it? It says, no, it says it's ahead. The next valley. Or thereabouts. Maybe even the one just right beyond that. There was an Acropolis up there. Something. I see these little water holes like that. You see that, like down there, right beneath us? Like things like that. I've seen a couple of these now, where it's just an area with like a watering hole. That's what I think that they are. So we'll keep our eye open for more of those. Large body of water over there. Oh, it's still the coast over there. I didn't realize that he was still going to be in seeing distance, so that's cool. You can imagine how important it was in the past to have something up on all the tallest points so you could see everything. Absolutely vital. There's another watering hole down there. Right there. And another one. See two of them. Oh, if you want a snack or anything, in the back, I imagine all of these chairs not being here. I imagine couches on the side. I would much rather have couches. You know, if you want to look out the window, cool. And then I want some an area to open this all up here, and I want a little mini bar and lots of snacks. And I think there's a little toilet back here. Maybe it's in the Honda Jet that there's a little toilet, but we would need a little one behind this area as well, or something. A hole over here. Just kidding. But I would want you to be as comfortable as possible, and I really don't like the seating arrangements. You know, they look all right, but it's not like, oh, this just screams party, man. you know, it's just a little too formal. Some rugs, throw pillows. So I think by the time we get to where we're at, I think that will be, I want to say 2 years. I'm probably way off. The whole campaign itself, everywhere we're going to go, and then some. There's probably a lot more places he went that we're not going to be covering at all. Like, the place they never mentioned him going to is the Temple of Baalbek in Lebanon. I had to go look it up. I'm like, really? He didn't go here? Why would he not go there? So then I went to go look it up, and yeah, he went there. That would be vital. It would be vital for him if he's on this hunt for being red-pilled and all the information about the Anunnaki and their different spaceports or temple complexes. He would have to go to Baalbek. And he did. Some of the largest stones for building construction ever are in Baalbek. The 3 largest stones and carved stones in the world for a building, and then they're way up off the ground too, which makes it even more mind blowing. They make the stones. The stones in the pyramid are about 2 tons, and we're always marveled at that growing up. We're like, really? All major stones in the pyramids, those are about approximately 2 tons each or more. The stones at Baalbek are 1,700 tons each. And they were carved. They were carved out of the ground and put into place on an elevated platform. The place was so important that even in the future, when it was time for the Romans to take over, the Romans came all the way out here to claim the place as their own and built the Temple of Jupiter there. Where the heck is it? We should be over it by now. No, we're still not there yet, it says. 5 minutes. LTFB. Make sure I've got the right airport. Yeah, I was in the wrong airport. Okay, request full stop landing. "12 miles north, 2992, make base, right base runway 27. All right. Only 12 miles to be able to see the pattern. Knowledge pattern entry instructions. Where are you? Go ahead and begin descent. Put your seatbelts on. We're gonna dive. DiMaggio. Prop forward, separator on. All right, we've entered the kingdom of Magnesia. And again, I was dumb American. I'm like, Magnesia, like milk of magnesia? Right. Why would they call it Magnesia? And it's because of the magnets. Back then, when they didn't know what magnets were, they just called this place, you know, the mythical place where rocks attracted and repelled each other. So weird to think about. Imagine not knowing what magnetism is and experiencing it. Which reminds me of a Conan story. There's a place where Conan's trying to fight somebody, and thinks magic is being used because he's being pulled because he's wearing heavy metal armor. His sword and everything else is, you know, being attracted to these large rocks, and he's getting pinned against these giant rocks as he's being attacked because of the magnetism. How's the airport? There's so much farmland, I get blind as to, it's hard for me to make out airports or runways. And why we're not getting our landing pattern, beyond me. Because we're 1 minute out. I guess I don't see it. Man, I didn't think we would be out here this far. But whatever. Whatevs, you know? Because we're over it. That kind of looks like a runway over there. I'm guessing that's it. So we'll try it and see what it says. Yeah, and there's our heading pattern. Now we see it. They wanted us to come in from the other direction. Oops.
We have touchdown. Contact ground for your parking assignment, then shut down your engine.
Hey. We have arrived at, I believe this is Magnesia. We'll double check everything once we get there, in case I've made a mistake. But if I haven't, that's where we're at. The location of ancient Magnesia. And we'll find out just why he wanted to come here next. He wasn't concerned about any of the city-states over along the coast, and he let his generals take care of those. And he headed right for this place. All right, we are here. We can see about selling these. Oh no, this isn't the place where we sell our computers. We just take a break. Okay, let's hop out. I really want that camping kit. So we can see our, see the campfire and put some coffee down and let our pets out. So if you would like to help me get that, please donate. Go to Super Chat in the chat room there and make a donation. And I would really like to get that pack. Turn this down. That's been turn this up a little bit. Dump, 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 dump. Up the field. Where is the ambient occlusion? Let's put it on at least low. We don't bog down too much. All right, let's hop out. So somewhere in this area here, as we get up higher in the air and start looking around, it looks like what do you call it? A stadium right over there. Not a stadium, an amphitheater. I was going to say, this is the location of the ancient city of Magnesia, and let's try to find some ruins that really let us know that we're in an ancient site. And there really isn't anything that you could, other than like an amphitheater, where you can absolutely say, man, now we know we're in the ancient world.
Ready for engine start.
So now we know for certain we are in an ancient site, because look at that. And I wonder if it was like Red Rocks or other amphitheater, because beyond the hill, you'd kind of want to get away from the bustle and the noise so that you have good acoustics. But obviously there was something awesome here. Look at the ground. Look at all the places where pillars are. Look at this whole thing on the garden over here on the right-hand side. That's pillar encased. There's pillars everywhere. And then just over the mountain here, we look up. Higher. There's a bunch of, there's a big city, actually. It looks big from here. Straight ahead. And back then, for them to walk all the way out here for an amphitheater, I suppose that's not going to be a big deal. So I wonder if it extended all the way the city, extended all the way out here, or if this was just an, if this was it, if this was the complex all along here. That is a big plaza, and those trees are right in the middle of it. And you've got this nice long road out into a field. But then another major set of structures down here. And looks like a giant fountain, actually, or a water. There's something to do with water there. Don't know if these are old traces of a wall along here. I don't know. But yeah, then there's this giant causeway. And then the airport right here. That's wild. Even today, like I said earlier, there's not a whole lot of airports. There's not. But there's one here near this site. So I wonder if there's more to the story. So let's find out what we can find out as we take a small little break here at Magnesia. And yeah, when I typed in Google, I get milk of magnesia. That's the first thing that came out. You can buy a bottle of milk of magnesia, a 4-ounce bottle, from Carolina Biological Supply for $7.10. Let me grab my tea and pull this up here and YouTube. Where's the overlay? Magnesia. Why is it not blowing up properly? That's so strange that it won't fill the window. Don't know what I've done. Huh. That's a little better. Ancient Magnesia. Okay, no, that's in Greece. Ancient Thessaly, originally inhabited by the Magnetes. No, okay, so we're reading the wrong thing. City of Lydia. Now Manisa, Turkey. See what I mean about the names changing? Oh. Now that I see this image down here, this is a place where they said they had a statue of the mother of all the gods. So you can see how being a religious person like Alexander and believing in the gods, this is the place they're calling the... How often do you ever see temples to the mother of all gods? Let me turn off the automatic scene switcher because it keeps dipping out on me. Stop it for a minute. And now I can grab my tea. Okay, Magnesia ad Sifilum in modern Manisa, Turkey, was a city of Lydia, situated 65 kilometers northeast of Smyrna, now Izmir. We're going to be going that way next. On the river Hermus, now Gediz, at the foot of Mount Sipylus. The city should not be confused with its older neighbor, Magnesia, on the Meander, both founded by colonists from the Greek region of Magnesia. The first famous mention of the city is in 190 BC, when Antiochus the Great was defeated in the Battle of Magnesia by the Roman consul Lucius Cornelis Scipio Aziotachus. Became a city of importance under Roman rule. No, it was mentioned earlier because Alexander the Greek was here. It was important. It became a city of importance under Roman rule, though nearly destroyed by an earthquake in the reign of Tiberius. Was restored by that emperor and flourished through the Roman Empire. It was an important regional center through the Byzantine Empire, and during the 13th century interregnum of the Empire of Nicaea. Magnesia housed an imperial mint. Aha! Gold. Remember, Alexander's on the hunt for gold. But this is in Roman times now. But either way, it was a mint. Maybe it's still, it was a mint back then too. The imperial treasury served as a mint and an imperial treasury. Served as the functional capital of the empire. Why would... That's so weird. You think about Rome and it's so far away. Can you imagine having your bank thousands of miles away? Okay, until... It served as the functional capital of the empire until the recovery of Constantinople in 1261. It was one of the few towns in this part of Anatolia which remains prosperous under the Turkish rule. Two famous relics of antiquity. The first is the NEOFLY of Sipylus, a natural rock formation on the lowest slopes of the mountains in the middle of town. The second is Sartlu Tash, a colossal stone carving allegedly portraying Cybele, about 100 meters up the mountain, about 6 kilometers east of the town. This is a colossal seated image cut in a niche of the rock, of Hittite origin, and perhaps that called by Pausanias, the very ancient statue of the mother of the gods, carved by Proteus, son of Tantalus, and sung by Homer. It can be seen by driving into a parking lot at a children's playground. Near the carving lie many remains of a primitive city, and about a mile east is the rock seat conjecturally identified with Pausanias' throne of Pelops. There's also hot springs and a sacred grotto of Apollo around here. Parts of the major fortifications built during the Empire of Nicaea remain evident. Magnetism. Here we go. One of the regions colonized by the Magnetes is a primary source for mysterious stones that could attract or repel each other, possibly leading to the modern term for magnets and magnetism. Some suggest that it was Magnesia ad Sipylum, others that it was Magnesia regional unit in Thessaly. This has been debated both in modern times and in antiquity without resolution. The town had a bishop in late antiquity. Alexander at the Council of Chalcedon. Okay, in 553? That doesn't make sense. That's so late. Let's see what it says here. Alexander the Council. Now we're talking about Roman emperors. Well, let's find out. So he went there. Alexander at the Chalcedon. Find out what this says here. The Council of Chalcedon was the fourth ecumenical council of the Christian Church. Yeah, let's go back and go earlier in time. This is a heavy-duty religious site, man. Heavy. So, man, it makes sense. I mean, a lot of heavy religious stuff going on here. But I don't see the mention of Alexander. When they had a fight, it says. All right, let me go back and see if I can find. Let's see if we can find a different way to get the information. I don't know where the Kings and Generals channel got their information from, but it said he went here. Do. But all I can do is take their word on it. They said he came down here and was here before he went to... So I'm guessing, without knowing any better, this is just a shot in the dark. I'm guessing because this place has been a holy place to the Roman times, that the Romans came down here and they just kept going with what the Greeks were doing before them. They wanted to know all the stuff about the Anunnaki and everything else, so they came all the way out here as well. So it leads me to believe that it's always been a very rich place. And so it would make sense that he would come here for some money. Gotta wait for my scene switcher to kick back on here. Let's see if it kicks in. Not quite yet. How about now? Now it's working. Okay. Let's get back down to our airplane here. Okay, and let's see how our fuel is. Over here. I don't think we probably have enough, but just to be safe, making money is not as important as making sure we have enough fuel. Okay, now let's see what the markets are doing here. And again, we are at LTFB. They're selling that, and we are headed to LTBV. Really, 781 for computers. Down there, okay. We might be able to pick up some more computers. No? This you weigh too much. We can buy 2 pallets of computers. $10,000. Okay. Okay. So, got computers, we've got fuel, and it is time to take off and get out of here. We are departing south. There is no air traffic control in here, I think. Oh, there is. 16 hold short runway 27. Contact tower on 13305 when ready. All right. Probably done this first. I haven't killed one of these guys yet, but probably a good idea to always do your pushback first. Let's check our weight. Ah, we're getting away with it. No, we better not. We better set it up where we're heavy. At least our weight's working again. 1,200 pounds. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Thank you for the pushback. No wind data. Last altimeter was 2992. Should be all right. And our flight plan should still be in effect. Yep. Okay. That have it. What am I missing here?
You're good to go. Contact the tower for clearance.
Yep. No, yes, no. Why aren't you moving? Definitely going way faster than they want you to taxi. I'm going to go down to the end so we get the maximum amount of runway. You're not really supposed to taxi any faster than you can walk. But you'll find once you get into career mode in Flight Simulator, you're just always going as fast as possible. Now, I mean, you can keep going, but almost in the real world, almost always, you always want to stop at the last gate here. And usually call your intentions in at this point, but we've already been cleared. And then a big old mountain to get over. We have enough runway. Come on, baby. Yeah. Flaps down. That's why.
Enjoy your personal flight, pilot. You can search for more jobs after you land.
We'll do a cut and follow the road this way.
In Christian tradition, the Seven Sleepers is the story of a group of youths who hid inside a cave outside the city of Ephesus around AD 250 to escape one of the Roman persecutions of Christians and emerged some 300 years later. A version of the story also appears in the Quran. The story says that during the persecutions by the Roman Emperor Decius, around 250 AD, 7 young men were accused of following Christianity. They were given some time to recant their faith, but they refused to bow to Roman idols. Instead, they chose to give their worldly goods to the poor and retire to a mountain cave to pray, where they fell asleep. The emperor, seeing that their attitude towards paganism had not improved, ordered the mouth of the cave to be sealed. Decius died in 251, and many years passed during which Christianity went from being persecuted to being the state religion of the Roman Empire. At some later time, usually given as during the reign of Theodosius II, in 447 AD, when heated discussions were taking place between various schools of Christianity about the resurrection of the body in the day of judgment and life after death, a landowner decided to open up the sealed mouth of the cave, thinking to use it as a cattle pen. He opened it and found the sleepers inside. They awoke, imagining that they had slept but one day, and sent one of their number to Ephesus to buy food, with instructions to be careful. Upon arriving in the city, this person was astounded to find buildings with crosses attached. The townspeople for their part were astounded to find a man trying to spend old coins from the reign of Decius. The bishop was summoned to interview the sleepers. They told him their miracle story, and died praising God. Whether the original account was written in Syriac or Greek was a matter of debate, but today a Greek original is generally accepted. The pilgrim account De Situ Terrae Sancta, written between 518 and 531, records the existence of a church dedicated to the sleepers in Ephesus. The story appeared in several Syriac sources before Gregory of Tours' lifetime. The earliest Syriac manuscript copy is in MS St. Petersburg No. 4, which dates to the 5th century. It was retold by Simeon the Metaphrast. The Seven Sleepers formed the subject of a homily and verse by the Edessan poet-theologian Jacob of Sarf, died 521, which was published in the Acta Sanctorum. As the earliest versions of the legend spread from Ephesus, an early Christian catacomb came to be associated with it, attracting scores of pilgrims. On the slopes of Mount Pion/Mount Celion near Ephesus, near modern Selçuk in Turkey, the Grotto of the Seven Sleepers with ruins of the religious site built over it was excavated in 1926-1928. The excavation brought to light several hundred graves dated to the 5th and 6th centuries. Inscriptions dedicated to the Seven Sleepers were found on the walls and in the graves. This grotto is still shown to tourists.
Wow. So Alexander the Great left where we were just at Magnesia, and now we're making our way towards, as I understand, if I'm pronouncing it right, Miletus. Right? Now, Miletus was another coastal fortress city. And this guy that was kind of like a friend of his from Greece, he's a statesman back in Athens. He came over here to raise hell and fight against Alexander. So his nemesis basically is this guy named Memnon and a couple other guys, but they're from Greece, and now they're big deals down here, over here, and they control a bunch of stuff, and they control this place that we're headed to called Miletus. And they fought, as I understand, they fought Alexander up at Granicus where we started out, and then they fled, and they're going to try to fight him again down here. And this is where he's going to bring in siege equipment and everything else and take it to him. Let's find out how far we have to go. It says it's only 6 minutes away. No. Well, the next place is. Let's check. Yeah, that's it. 6 minutes away. All right, so Miletus. I can start to see it now out there. Those, what they look like are reefs out there. Those were actually giant shipping areas and walls, coastal walls, and they had a giant coastal fortress and a couple areas that were really, really heavily fortified, but heavily walled all the way around this complex. Let's do an altitude hold here. So Alexander, outside the gates, I'll show you where they staged. Basically, like right out in front of us is where he started staging. And then he would circle around this whole place trying to find entrances in. So he still has his fleet with him, as I'm understanding at this point. He later disbands the fleet, one, to save a lot of money because fleets are very expensive. But he was more concerned with doing a land campaign. And his fleets had done a pretty good job of mopping up the area and fighting back the Persian fleets in the area. But he still had his fleets up to this point, and they were coming down this way to a cove beyond out here, beyond way kind of in the distance there, and they were able to unload all of his siege equipment. Again, if you stick around to the end of the stream, I'll try to play the Kings and Generals animation and description of the battle. They're really awesome. But I don't know that they'll actually approve me using them. And I don't know if the music is copyright safe. I'm pretty sure, I want to say this is the area here. Because he did have these little moats to cross, and he was building all kinds of other things. But let me go a little bit further out here. But if I'm right, Alexander would have been staged out here and going behind us. Could also be up here, but I'm not 100% certain. Go down a little bit further. See what we can see. Do you believe that was it though? This actually seems more like the area, but I honestly don't know at the moment. I'd have to use that searching the coordinates again. Yeah, that does look like the area over there a little bit more. It had an enclosed shipping. I don't know what you call it, like water breaks, whatever when they create these little structures that extend into the water to break the water, a little harbor. Okay, so if this is it, and Alexander was staging over here, he had brought his siege equipment from back there. And this would have been the site. Okay. So, a long siege, and I guess he really wasn't happy and didn't want to do many more sieges after this because it was such a pain in the butt. Let me see now if I can find Alexander at Miletus. The Siege of Miletus. Tea time. Siege of Miletus was Alexander the Great's first siege and naval encounter with an Achaemenid empire. This siege was directed against Miletus, a city in South Ionia, which is now located in the Aden province of modern-day Turkey. During the battle, Parmenian's son, Miletus, would be key in preventing the Persian navy from finding safe anchorage. It was captured by Parmenian's son, Nicanor. And it's such a small little paragraph for some heavy activity that took place. And it took a while. I mean, I don't know exactly. I would have to find something else that explained how many days or whatever. But there was a lot of little skirmishes and wicked loss of life on both sides. And again, his fleet was circling the area. Let's see what it says on this site here. If it will load. All right. You're being a pain in the butt, so we're going to skip you. Site. And the next place we're going is a storm of terrors, Alexander at the Great Halicarnassus. All right, we might as well just get over to Halicarnassus and then we can call the show mostly over. And what I would like to do is I would like to use these go over to the King and General's channel, and I would like to play you what they have put together on the battle of these locations, and I need to put it at the end of the live stream in case I need to cut it out. It may cause a copyright issue. I don't know. This is all I'm playing it by ear at the moment. I hope that they don't have any problem with me using their content in the search for all this information, because they're the coolest. And let's hope that the music that they're using behind their presentations is also copyright safe. So that's why I want to put it at the end. And again, if nothing is kosher or there's a problem, I can cut it off of the end of this live stream for the replay. All right. Off to Halicarnassus. But Memnon supposedly turned his wife and family over to Alexander here at this place so that they would be safe, because he was a cool dude like that. He'd make sure that your wife and kids were taken care of, for the most part, I guess. So it's said that that guy we were talking about turned his family over. So that he kept making his way along the coast. Again, we're going to Halicarnassus next, the next big place. And then after that, the first encounter against Darius III, face-to-face at ISSUS. And that's huge. That is basically, at that point, he's won. There's going to be a couple other fights, but he takes it to him so hard and fast that the Persian king doesn't know what to do. And he freaks out and has to run away. When Alexander gets to a place down the road called Tyre, that is a wild, wild, wild story. I can't wait to get down there, show you all that, and how far they've come since Alexander's time. There was an island where we're going to be headed later called Tyre, and it wasn't connected to the mainland. And they made Alexander the Great so mad that he started building a road out to the island. And at first they started laughing at him. And with all the men that he had with him, they started constructing more and more and more. And he started getting closer and closer and closer. I want to say this looks more like Miletus here, the way it's shaped, with their harbors and inner city. But I don't know. That's pretty down there. That really does look a lot more like the battle place that we're talking about here. Let me pause here for a minute. Yeah, this really does look more like the place as described in the video that we're going to watch. Look at the shape of things in this little harbor. It's got like the little harbor to the left, and then the big harbor to the right. Now, Alexander, if this is the spot, actually more the spot, then everything below us would have been the ancient city that they burned. They burned it. They were doing a scorched earth thing. And then he would have dropped off his catapults and stuff over here in this harbor to the north. I'm sorry, to the south, actually. Over here to the left of the screen is the north. And then when he pushed them back into the city and they started setting everything on fire, they retreated to a fortress like over here on this rock. And he was supposed to come in through one of these gates over here initially, and ended up doing the fighting over here to break through the gates. I don't know. I could have the place entirely wrong, but this seems a lot more like what we're shooting for. All right, on to Halicarnassus. Turn the autopilot on. Out hold, lower our speed. Don't need the conditioner full. Don't need the separator on, and we want our propeller pulled back. Please. And after that, we want to land at LTPV there and sell our computers. Try to make some money. So you had gone all the way around or used his fleet to come down into here. And what we've covered so far is just the tip of the iceberg so far. His adventures are going to take him, as we continue south, we're going to go past Jerusalem. We're going to go past Gaza. He ended up fighting in Gaza too. Man, they've never stopped fighting there. So he has a big fight in Gaza. And then he's going to keep going south to Damascus. Then he's going to head into Egypt. Then he's going to go on this crazy vacation to these temples in Egypt to learn more about, to get more red pilled, basically. But even before that, we still have to do a turnaround and go way back northeast to the kingdom of Midas to get more gold. And deal with that knot. So yeah, he's got the Battle of Tyre and then all that stuff. And then are the other major battles with Darius out to the east. And then we go south. And then it gets really weird. Because now Darius is going to be on the run and we go down into Mesopotamia. And we go to Babylon. And from Babylon, we make it to Susa. At Susa, we get to go to Persepolis and burn everything down. And at that point, basically his job and his mission was done, but he was having too much fun because now he's truly getting red-pilled. And he starts to go into India, and that's where things get really strange. India's got some of the craziest stories about ancient gods, and it's crazy. We'll go ahead and get our landing intentions done now. Out of the way. We're 16 miles from the airport. Altimeter's fine. Probably be over here somewhere. The island of Rhodes is right around here. That could be out there in front of us. And that's where the Colossus was. The Colossus of Rhodes. A giant lighthouse that used to exist. One of the 7 wonders of the world, of the ancient world. And I do believe he had to mess with those folks at Rhodes too, but that's not something I think that they cover. Kind of like him going to Baalbek, they really don't give spend any time on the stories with that place. All right, so we're coming into ancient Halicarnassus. So let your mind explore the terrain and you know, you're dealing with 60, 70, 80,000 people probably. Who knows how many he's got with him at this point. But he's always traveling in huge numbers. And so you would have had to have been able to support all these people, and then all the people that he's going to be fighting, and they had to support themselves. And so there was probably a lot going on back in the day over here. Greece. Today is still a pretty big place, but surprisingly, again, you know, not super modern. I want to say one of these places he jumped in the water. It was December. It may have been here. He got here in December, or was here during a December. And they said he was either bathing or he fell into a river or he jumped into some cold water and he caught the flu. And he had to recover here for a while. Pardon me. Now let's see if we can find that darn airport. We want LTBV. All right, it is over here. See what I mean? You'd think that there would have been an airport closer to the coast. Nah. Very pretty. Wow. So now we got to find a route through or over. Then put the propeller back in. Let's get some bite.
The mausoleum at Halicarnassus, or Tomb of Mausolus, was a tomb built between 353 and 350 BC in Halicarnassus for Mausolus, a native Anatolian from Caria and a satrap in the Achaemenid Empire, and his sister wife Artemisia II of Caria. The structure was designed by the Greek architects Satyros and Pythias of Priene. Its elevated tomb structure is derived from the tombs of neighboring Lycia, a territory Mausolus had invaded and annexed circa 360 BC, such as the Nereid monument. The mausoleum was approximately 45 meters in height, and the four sides were adorned with sculptural reliefs, each created by one of four Greek sculptors, Leocharis, Bryaxis, Scopas of Paros, and Timotheos. The finished structure of the mausoleum was considered to be such an aesthetic triumph that Antipater of Sidon identified it as one of his 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was destroyed by successive earthquakes from the 12th to the 15th century, the last surviving of the 6 destroyed wonders. The word mausoleum has now come to be used generically for an above-ground tomb.
Okay. Now, a story that takes place here with Alexander that I'm remembering now. That guy that they're talking about, Mausolus, his mausoleum was built over here. If you played Rome Total War and you come and you capture it, in certain gameplays, you get bonuses. You can get, perks from holding the ancient sites. And that's one of them, the mausoleum at Mausolus here, or whatever, wherever it's at below us, or was. Again, it's been destroyed, so not going to really see much. But his sister. All right, so now let's focus on his sister. So Mausolus dies, and his sister is now in control of everything out here at Halicarnassus. Okay, and they deposed her. And we're heading in the direction where they deposed her to. It was through this valley, as I understand it, or up through one of these valleys out into this region over here, probably up here where the water's at here. Not 100% certain. But she had to escape and was deposed not too far down range. Alexander called her mother. He liked her so much, and she liked him. He called her mother, and when he took back over the place, he made her in charge again. He put her in charge. So yeah, it was either over here or a little bit further. Yeah, it's can't really get my bearings in there. So I think over here this is the area that she was deposed, or it was over along in those valleys. But since the airport is over here, I'm kind of leading, and I think the place is called Adina. This place, Bodrum, is also connected to whatever's going on here. And it's still, as I understand it, it's still part of Halicarnassus out here. So she was in charge of a lot all of this. Again, if you want to stick around, as soon as we land here and sell these computers, I want to go to the Kings and Generals channel on YouTube, and I want to play the battles of Miletus and the situation at Halicarnassus here. Pergamon, it's behind us and up the road a ways. You may have heard of that in literature. Pergamon. Isn't it amazing? These places have been around since the earliest histories, and yet they still look like they're at that time. You don't see modern highways. We still haven't seen real... I mean, that place was pretty big, but we didn't see any skyscrapers. We didn't see any major highways. Any modern industry. It all still looks like luxury resort areas. It blows my mind. Because here in the Western world, we're in Europe, we're crazy about expansion, modernization, industrialization, yada, yada, yada. separator on open. Yeah, I don't think you want to follow the gates down into the mountain.
That was a harder landing than we like to see, pilot.
Uh-oh. Messing up the computer parts.
Contact ground for your parking assignment, then shut down your engine.
Yeah, they want us over there. I want to go over here. As long as we're off the... well, we're going to be stopping here, so I guess... I come to this garage over here. Okay. So for us to try to sell our computers, we have to make we have to be shut off. Come on. The other shut off. All right. Okay. Now that we've landed, it thinks the computer thinks the aircraft is shut down. And now we'll go back into NEOFLY and try to sell these computers to see how much we can make. We should be making 781 per pallet.
Ready for engine start.
So selling 2,090 pounds worth. And selling them all for 112,024. That's funny, that pops up, but you don't see that, how much we're making on it. All right, well, we made, I don't know how much we spent. but we made good money. Okay, like I said, now I want to do the I want to find the Kings and Generals channel on YouTube and pull up the Battle of Miletus and the Battle of, or whatever, what to do with Halicarnassus down here. Let me get YouTube open. So we need that's number 3. Number 1, number 2. That's Granicus. Let's start with this one. Let me see here. That off. I don't know what it is, but I love technology commercials. I don't know what this is. It just looks cool. All right. Again, if from here forward, if you're watching the video and everything just ends right here, sorry I had to cut everything out beyond this. It's not compatible with my live stream, and there's a dispute or some problem along the road some way, but that's why I'm putting it at the end here. What happened?
Alexander crossed the Hellespont in 334 BC and launched an invasion of the mighty Persian Empire. Soon after, he crushed a provincial Achaemenid army at the Battle of the Granicus, leaving all of Asia Minor ripe for conquest. However, before the Macedonian army could push deeper into Darius's empire and face down its giant armies, it would have to deal with a number of stubborn cities on the Aegean coast loyal to the great king. It was time to prove whether the military machine created by Philip could handle a siege. Join kings and generals in this 3rd episode of our series covering the sieges of Miletus and Halicarnassus. One of the most iconic events in the campaigns of Alexander is his cutting of the Gordion knot, which shows decisiveness in the face of a difficult-to-solve situation. Reports of what had occurred at the Granicus reverberated throughout Asia Minor with prodigious speed.
Okay, so they're saying he did go to the kingdom of Midas before coming down here, but in another version, they just said he came straight down here and went to Magnesia first. But we know he was looking for gold. So either way, we're going to have to double back at some point and go back up there to the kingdom of Midas, Gordion, where this whole situation with the Gordion knot took place. Again, they don't want to talk about, well, King Midas. There's a lot of gold there. They always want to focus on the Gordion knot. But the Gordion, well, they'll tell you all about the Gordion knot here. I'm trying to get it so it fits the screen better. Something more like that.
And to immediate effect. At Ephesus,
Dang
the
it.
mercenary garrison, together with one of Alexander's exiled court rivals, Magnesia, seized a pair of warships and abandoned their post, making their way to the great king's court. Marching from Sardis, the victorious Macedonian king captured Ephesus without resistance after a 3-day march, before rendezvousing with his navy and receiving emissaries from other Lydian towns offering submission. Intent on securing his conquests before advancing inland, Alexander appointed Parmenion and Alcimachus each a contingent of several thousand troops and sent them off to assure the capitulation of settlements throughout Ionia, Lydia and Aeolia. Their remit was clear. Greek cities were to have democratic governments installed, oligarchies were to be deposed, local customs were to remain unchanged, and crucially, taxes cancelled, a gesture which never hurts a new ruler's popularity. At this point, while he was concluding affairs in Ephesus, Alexander received a number of important messages in quick succession. First came welcome reports that the governor of Miletus, Halicarnassus, was prepared to surrender his city. Then came the definitely less welcome news that a massive Achaemenid war fleet had been spotted near Rhodes on its way to reinforce the area. Finally, sometime later, Alexander got wind that Halicarnassus, newly inspired by the knowledge that reinforcements were en route, had recanted his surrender. Realizing he had to act swiftly to prevent the city becoming a nigh impregnable Persian fortress, Alexander sent riders to recall his generals and then immediately marched south with what soldiers he had. The King's Hellenic League fleet of about 160 ships was sent ahead. Racing along the coast, it succeeded in arriving at Miletus before the incoming enemy fleet was anywhere close, where it set down anchor at the adjacent island of Ladi. Not long thereafter, Alexander arrived with the army and occupied Miletus's landward outer suburbs without resistance, before establishing a blockade of the inner districts.
Okay, I've got my places wrong then as we were floating around the coast. So he cruised across.
Then to reinforce.
I'm not certain where he's at, but I was looking more along this kind of coast over here, but again, somewhere in this area, this is all taking place. But I should have been looking for that little islet, the little island right here, and this sharp tip. And I was concentrating more on mainland stuff. Now, this could just be north of us too, and we could be down here. I don't know. Either way, let's just keep going with this battle that took place.
Force his anchored fleet at Ladi, the king further fortified the island with Thracian skirmishers and a few thousand mercenary soldiers. The massive Persian fleet finally approached Miletus a full 3 days after the Greek fleet had made its base at Ladi. However, despite a numerical superiority of more than 2 to 1, and the empire's expert Phoenician and Cypriot crews, the Persians realized they would not be able to dislodge Alexander's navy from Ladi, nor easily deploy troops to bolster Miletus's defense. The 400 Persian ships were therefore forced to circumvent the Hellenic navy and anchor at an exposed suboptimal position of Mount Mycale, further from the city and cut off from any source of fresh water by parties of Macedonian cavalry. Making the decision to keep his inferior fleet on the defensive at Ladi, Alexander began readying his siege weaponry and infantry to breach the city fortifications. As the king's preparations were nearing completion, a prominent citizen came out on behalf of the mercenary garrison to parley.
Yeah, I've got it all wrong.
Messenger, the garrison offered
what I was talking about.
City, open
I didn't cover this one at all.
Alexander alike,
right.
If only the siege was lifted. Alexander's unimpressed response was simple: prepare yourselves for the fight. At dawn the following day, Parmenion and Alcimachus returned, allowing an assault. Macedonian ballistae and catapults began hammering the fortifications, clearing sections of the wall, and inflicting structural damage, while battering rams advanced to create breaches up close. The main body of infantry was drawn up as this assault was ongoing, standing ready in preparation to rush in and widen any gap in the Milesian defences. However, due to the strength of the garrison and abundance of missile fire, the initial Macedonian attack was blunted with relative ease. Arrian relates how the nearby Persian navy, although unable to resist, were close enough to see Alexander's men advancing against their isolated allies across the bay with the naked eye. As time went on, the land attack gradually began making progress. Small punctures were made, missile stores ran low, and the defenders were placed under ever-increasing pressure. All that the Macedonians required was something to tip the scales, and Miletus would be theirs. Seeing that the king had launched his assault from the land, Admiral Nicanor embarked his ships from Ladi and sailed them into the Milesian harbour mouth, tightly packed in an ostensible attempt to prevent any Persian move to relieve the city. It had a far greater effect than that. With their walls near crumbling under Alexander's assault, this quasi-attack prompted a total collapse. The Macedonian army subsequently managed to get inside the city, primarily killing soldiers, but also civilians who might have been in the way. Of the Milesian defenders, just 300 mercenaries and a scattering of other warriors managed to escape to a steep-sided islet slightly offshore. When they surrendered soon after, Alexander granted them the mercy he had learned at the Granicus. The citizens who had survived the brief spate of violence were also left alone. Unable to prevent the fall of the city it had come to reinforce, and successfully prevented from foraging ashore, the still formidable Persian fleet sailed to Samos, restocked with whatever they needed, and then returned to Miletus, looming in open water close to the harbour entrance. 5 Persian vessels were sent as bait to lure Alexander onto the open sea, but a swift hit-and-run assault by 10 Greek triremes destroyed one of them and sent the other 4 running back to the main fleet. Unable to accomplish anything of use, the great King's Armada weighed anchor and sailed.
And we're back. Adams is quarterbacking this project, and she is looking pretty tired.
Skip that.
With Miletus conquered, it was at this moment in mid to late 334 that Alexander made the strategic decision to disband his fleet. Not only would such an unconventional course of action relieve Alexander of having to bear the massive cost required to maintain said ships, but in truth, he did not totally trust their Greek crews. Moreover, the king was pragmatic enough to realize that he could never hope to match Darius's naval strength on the water with or without a fleet of his own. Just 20 Athenian triremes were retained to ferry the army's siege engines. Based on his army's pitched battle at the Granicus and siege at Miletus, Alexander judged that investing everything in a land campaign was his best shot at success. His army was master of the continent, and now there was no way to retreat. Its troops would fight on even harder. Still, Persian seaborne might was a firm threat that had to be dealt with, or it might expand the war to a second front in Greece, or even inspire rebellions at home. So, rather than attempting to oppose Achaemenid naval hegemony in the eastern Mediterranean by vainly headbutting it with ships of his own, Alexander instead devised a plan to conquer the ships from the land. He would embark on a Herculean endeavor within his already titanic campaign, marching inexorably down the Mediterranean coastline and capturing coastal cities from which the Persian navy operated. The first victim of Alexander's new strategy would be Halicarnassus, where Mausolus's eponymous mausoleum was constructed a few decades earlier. Set in a natural amphitheater, Halicarnassus was heavily fortified, possessed a fantastic harbour, and had its garrison swollen by native troops alongside several thousand mercenaries under Memnon of Rhodes's command. This Greek general, who had risen to new heights following the Granicus debacle, was now Darius's official commander of Achaemenid efforts in the western satrapies. En route to this showdown with Memnon, Alexander stopped at the greatest fortress in the region, Olinda, and was introduced to the exiled Princess Ada, Mausolus's sister. Until just a few years before the Macedonian invasion, this region of southwestern Asia Minor, known as Caria, had been ruled by a native dynasty known as the Hecatomnids, who were in turn autonomous satraps within the Persian Empire. Ada, a Hecatomnid princess, had been the rightful heir before being deposed and exiled by her brother Pixodarus in 340. He died a few years later, allowing the Persians to marry the late dynast's daughter to Orontabetes and install him as satrap. Now Ada asked the king for aid in taking back her rightful position. By accepting this plea, Diodorus Siculus tells us that Alexander won allegiance from many of the Carian cities. The king subsequently Quickly moved on Halicarnassus and approached the city, guarded as it was by crenellated walls and fronted by
this is the one I was talking about.
moat.
I got him reversed.
Alexander encamped half a mile from the eastern Miletus gate and began preparing the siege. However,
Well, okay. I got the sister part right. Ada here at Mausoleum of Mausolus at Halicarnassus, the deposed sister Ada, whom he called Mother, but I got my battle sites mixed up. Okay, so Miletus, we missed it coming down here, or we flew over it, whatever. But this is the area I was talking about where he was circling around looking for an entrance, and then they hid in these fortresses out here. You'll see that there's another harbor connected to this one on the other side, or this little area right here is a fortressed area where these people will end up retreating. Memnon has turned his family over to Alexander, but Memnon is inside here with these other two generals resisting him. Now, Memnon, again, was, as I understand, an Athenian from Greece, and Alexander knew him from Greece, but he's down here taking all the money from Darius to fight Alexander. So you're going to hear them talking about Memnon a lot.
Supremacy had succeeded in preventing the Macedonian siege train from landing, so Alexander was forced to improvise until...
Sorry to interrupt again. But I've been trying to watch the different movies on Alexander the Great, and I watched one the other night with Richard Burton. And I don't know if it's just a matter of screenplays or changing things, but I've noticed a lot of incongruities in the stories. Like, for example, Roxanne, who we'll come to know later. In the Richard Burton story, Roxanne is the daughter of Darius III. And he captures her in this battle that's coming up. And then in like the movies and other programs, he doesn't meet Roxanne until he's way down in Babylon, or even further, going into India. So I don't know what the full story is. Either way, this is still just a hoot.
It managed to do so. Mounting his steed, Alexander led a scouting party forward to have a look at the formidable defenses they faced. Memnon was on him in an instant. When this scouting force approached, the Greek general had his archers and artillery fire upon the Macedonians from his walls. Then, not giving the invaders a second, he led a sortie of skirmishers out to niggle at Alexander's men with javelins and other missiles. A quick counterattack by the king managed to drive them back inside Halicarnassus, but Alexander nevertheless pulled back to camp. Several days after this initial probe, Alexander assembled his usual crack force of companions, Hypaspists and Agrianes, supplemented them with 3 phalanx regiments, and led them around to the western gate. While his primary aim in this endeavor was to scout out this side of Halicarnassus, there had also been whisperings from sympathizers inside the nearby port, Myndus, that the city would be surrendered if Alexander came to take it that night. Its possession would make seizing Halicarnassus that much easier. Under the cover of darkness, Alexander's forces approached Myndus at midnight and waited, and waited, and waited some more. There was no sign of the surrender that the Macedonians had been promised.
They got punked.
Unwilling or unable to abandon the gambit entirely, Alexander began sapping the walls in an effort to take the town by force. One of Myndus's guard towers fell with relative speed, but the prepared garrison fiercely resisted until reinforcements arrived from...
Okay, if you've never heard the term sapping before, and you're wondering, let me just back up just a touch. He says, and then he begins sapping the walls. Okay. So watch here, and then it's going to build 3, you see these 3 lines appear moving towards the wall. Sappers were like gophers, like the animal, the gopher. Sappers dug into the ground, and they dug tunnels that led up to these walls, and they carved out the earth very delicately along these walls so that the weight of the wall above would collapse. Talk about dangerous work. But that's what sappers do. Here he goes.
Waited some more. There was no sign of the surrender that the Macedonians had been promised. Unwilling or unable to abandon the gambit entirely, Alexander began sapping the walls in an effort to take the town by force. One of Midas's guard towers fell with relative speed, but the prepared garrison fiercely resisted until reinforcements arrived from Halicarnassus by sea. Having been prepared to simply walk into Midas, Alexander wasn't ready for another extended siege, and so withdrew to the Melassa Gate, rejoining the...
Have you dreamed of getting your pilot license and soaring through the sky?
I have. I have. Private pilot made easy. Your launchpad dreams reality. 35 hours of videos. Pilot Institute 35-minute lessons. Easy to pick up. That's really cool. You know, I have been so poor in my life. I dream about it, but I couldn't afford it. And I couldn't afford to take classes or buy anybody's special cool software like this. Because this is really cool. I like that. The 3D maps giving a good explanation of what's going on here. I have to say, if you're like me, though, you're bound and determined to learn, and you don't care where the information comes from. You're going to learn it if you have it. Well, you're here at YouTube. Okay, everything you ever want to know about what you need to take a real-world test, the real-world tests, it's all out here on the internet. And then it's just a matter of learning it. And Microsoft Flight Simulator, what you put into it, you get out of it. So, and what I mean by that is the more real you try to make it and follow exactly what the schools want for you to get your licenses, you can study it all in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Almost everything, with the exception of running around doing a visual inspection of your plane and checking the gas, which we might be able to do here down the road. But other than that, everything, including flying those airliners right there, learning how to fly everything. Anything you want to know with learning how to fly anything is available. Skip it and get back to the battle here.
Fortunate twist of fate, 20 Athenian triremes bearing Alexander's siege train managed to evade Memnon's ships and unload the city-taking weaponry.
Yeah, we're here in this other cove.
After a rocky start, things were at last looking up for the Macedonians. As the siege engines were made ready, Alexander sent his soldiers, under the cover of portable roofed sheds, to fill in large sections of the outer trench with earth and stones. With the ground prepared, the first proper assault on Halicarnassus could begin in earnest. While trundling siege towers and artillery were used to batter the fortifications, battering rams and mining operations gradually undermined sections of the East Curtain Wall. When the Macedonian undermining efforts managed to collapse a section of wall or bring down a tower, Alexander would throw his infantry at the section in an attempt to secure a breach. The Macedonian soldiery fought exceptionally well in these engagements, as they always would, but Memnon's equally disciplined Greek mercenaries, supplemented by thousands of native troops and wall archers, managed to keep the invaders at bay with relative ease. So far so good, but Memnon and his command council quickly understood that their enemy's efforts were destroying the walls with disconcerting efficiency. A proactive stance had to be made to prevent disaster. So that same night, while builders worked to patch up the previous day's damage with makeshift secondary fortifications, a commando unit of Halicarnassus' defenders, under Memnon, slipped out of the Carian capital unnoticed and quietly approached the dormant Macedonian siege machines. Getting close, the Greek general attempted to burn down and destroy Alexander's towers, rams, and artillery pieces. Unfortunately for his raiding party, its presence was discovered by sentinels who quickly sounded the alarm. Macedonian reinforcements converged, and a blind, desperate clash in the dark ensued. Beleaguered, unsuccessful, and having lost 170 men killed, Achaemenid forces were eventually forced into retreat. But the hard nighttime struggle had also resulted in 300 Macedonian wounded. Having suffered such casualties, neither side made a move for several days and were temporarily content to lick their wounds. This state of affairs apparently changed 3 days later at the behest of 2 rowdy Macedonian infantrymen from Perdiccas's regiment. In the process of drinking together, each man boasted of his exploits and declared how brave they were. Amusingly, and almost certainly because of Dutch courage, the contest escalated into the 2 enterprising warriors taking up their weapons and moving out, intent on putting words into action. Perhaps somewhat bemused by the odd attack, some guards saw the Macedonians coming and sallied out to assail them, but were in turn killed and driven back by the partially inebriated warriors. Made aware that some of their comrades were in danger, more men from Perdiccas's regiment marched to the fight, drawing even more defenders. This haphazard engagement grew and grew until the Macedonians eventually drove the defenders against the half-destroyed Melassa section of the wall. Suddenly, with the eastern fortifications in such a bad state, it seemed as though Alexander's forces might actually get into the city on the back of this deadly drunken brawl. Unfortunately for the troops who started the whole debacle, Halicarnassus' surprise was matched by most of the Macedonian army, which, being unaware of what was actually happening, did not press the attack in time, and Perdiccas's men were repelled. Alexander's late intervention prevented their destruction. To protect the area, Memnon had a crescent brick wall built, but this slapdash measure was clearly a weakness. Still, the whimsical nature of this event disguises the fact that it was a lethal clash that claimed the lives of many on both sides. So many Macedonians were killed, in fact, that Alexander sent a herald forward to ask for a truce so bodies might be recovered. 2 of Memnon's Athenian comrades, Ephialtes and Thrasybulus, advised their leader to deny this request. Memnon, in a move which allows us to see some of the man's honorable character, allowed it anyways. No real timescale is given by which we can judge the siege for sure, but the defenders had managed to hold the city for at least several weeks. However, if matters continued as they were, the Achaemenid generals believed that Halicarnassus would fall. In a final gambit that must have made Alexander blush even as it made him bleed, Memnon sent 2,000 men under Ephialtes through the Melassa gate during one of the Macedonian attacks. While half formed a phalanx and doggedly held off the king's infantry, the other half wielded brands and caused a great conflagration among his siege engines. Ephialtes' surprise attack, ably assisted by missile fire from the walls, was pushing back Alexander.
Imagine if manufacturing automation was simple. Introducing...
I wish I knew anything about that. I don't. I'm not that kind of smart. I mean, you know, given time, I really needed to build something, but don't really got that Tony Stark in me like that. My dad did. Crazy. That's pretty neat. So it is all Tony Stark stuff. Pretty soon, those robot arms will be talking, making noises. We'll hook an AI to it.
Became even more critical when Memnon sallied out of the northern gate of the city with Persian reserves, striking the Macedonian infantry in the flanks and rear. At this moment, beset on all sides, Theodorus states that even Alexander found himself quite helpless. It seemed as though the Persians were close to achieving a great victory.
Everybody's butt was clenching.
However, it was at this final juncture that Alexander's reserve battalion of grizzled veterans from Philip's era
are like, hell no, hell no.
Locked their shields, lowered their spears, and entered the fray. These elders smashed directly into Ephialtes' spent ranks, an unbreakable shield wall, and ripped them to pieces.
Experience, man.
By this old guard of warriors, the Macedonian soldiers rallied and pressed the assault. In minutes following this intervention, the Greek captain Ephialtes and hundreds of his soldiers were slain, leaving the sortie leaderless. Worse still was the psychological effect. The defenders had been on the edge of victory, perhaps of winning the entire war. They were not prepared for another fresh foe, and now they began routing. So panicked were the Halicarnassians at this sudden turn of events that they closed the gates too hastily, trapping a portion of their sally forces outside to be slaughtered against the ruined curtain. Over 1,000 of Memnon's troops had been slain in the risky action, and it hadn't paid off. Still, Alexander, whose cause had been definitively saved by the veteran corps, cautiously pulled back to camp at nightfall. Unknown to him, the siege was over, and he had won. Inside the moonlit city, Memnon and Orontobates took counsel, and taking into account all of their severe losses and the failure of their final gamble, decided to give up a greater part of the city. Memnon installed the best of his remaining soldiers in Halicarnassus's seaboard citadels at Salmacis and the Arcanesi, before loading the remainder onto his anchored and unchallenged navy, together with whatever movable supplies he could get his hands on. Then, in a methodical scorched earth attempt to prevent Alexander from gaining too much from his conquest, the withdrawing Achaemenids set fire to immovable stores, armories, artillery, and houses next to the walls. It did not seem to have been a vindictive act of wanton destruction against the civilian population, but seasonal autumn winds fanned the flames and led to its spread over great areas of the ancient city. While Memnon raised anchor and embarked, Alexander finally entered the burning city at midnight. At the king's command, Macedonian regiments marched respectfully through the liberated city, rescuing any inhabitant imperiled by the fire and demolishing buildings to create fire breaks. Surveying the still garrisoned fortresses, Alexander had a wall built around Salmacis to prevent any sortie, but found himself unable to do anything about the island's strongpoint of Arcanesi. Leaving 3,000 mercenaries and 200 cavalry to mop up on Persian resistance in Caria, Alexander kept his promise and gave Ada the satrapy before preparing to move deeper into Asia Minor. As he did so, the armies of Great King Darius III were finally nearing readiness to the east. In the course of the next year, 333, they would march west to the first great confrontation between the two greatest kings of the age at ISSUS. Our video on that epic battle is on the way,
so make sure you're subscribed to the Kings and Generals channel. And at this point, I guess I would have cut out if there's a giant blank in the live stream. I had to cut it all out, and I put the link to what we watched in the chat room. If you want to go to it, it's fantastic. It really brings these sites as we're flying around them to life, and so that's where we're headed to tomorrow. We're going to be heading south again. And we're going to get to ISSUS, and that's where Darius now comes back in. Now, I might fly up a little further because I guess we need to go back to King Midas territory. And there's a couple of places I think that he went to first before heading down that way. So I'll double check the route map stuff. But either way, we'll be either dealing with Midas and ISSUS tomorrow. It's 10 o'clock now here. Yeah, I'll just do 2 tonight and wrap it up. Okay. Let's get over here. Turn this off. Give me a moment here. I'm setting up to close. So this was episode number 137 of the Adventures of Kineas the Skydude, using Microsoft Flight Simulator, NEOFLY, and Bushtalk Radio. And we're flying the route of Alexander the Great, and we've already come down through the Hellespont, went to Troy, went to Granicus for the first battle, flew down here, looked at these major cities that he had to deal with before heading inward to go get some more gold, and then south to Issus, just next door to Tarsus. If you've ever heard that in literature, right next door, literally neighbors. In the big picture of things. And then from there, Darius is going to retreat back out east, and Alexander makes a mad dash. Now that he's beaten Darius, he doesn't feel the need to hurry, and he makes a mad dash down into Egypt. So we're going to go through past Jerusalem, into Gaza, to Damascus, into Egypt, and then make a way out to these temples where he went out to, where things started getting very red-pilled. Then he's going to come back and try to finish Darius off. And then things are even going to get weirder as we go south into Mesopotamia and then over into India. So look for tomorrow's live stream at 1 p.m. starting normal, and then again an evening. Since there's so many miles to do, we'll do an evening show again tomorrow night. Please like and subscribe, and if you would like to help me get the camping kit for Microsoft Flight Simulator, so when we land, we can come out and deploy our camp stuff for the night and to get our coffee on. And there's 17 variety of dogs that you can choose from, and they're going to be adding more stuff later. More items, hopefully fishing poles. And I'd really like to get that. So any donations will help me do that. In the big picture of things, I really want a better computer, and I'm going to get one no matter what. As we go towards the end of the year and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 comes out. I mean, whatever monster machine I can get, I'm going to get a monster machine. So I've been saving and saving and saving, and I might as well just keep saving until I decide to move on it. And any donations to help me get into a better computer to provide you with better and better and better graphics, the best I could possibly do, that'd be great. Could really use your help. If not, just liking and subscribing is ultimately the best thing you can do. It tells YouTube that you're enjoying it and that I'm worthy of the advertising, and I'll just try to pick up a couple of bucks that way. So thank you, folks. If you need a subscriber, just pop into the chat room and say, hey, subscribe to me, and you got it. You say hi in the chat room, I'll immediately go to your channel and subscribe. Can't think if there's anything else.